You're listening to The Art of Imperfect Adulting. I'm your host, Amy Stone. Here, I share stories from real people navigating the adventure that I call adulting. Are you ready? Me too. Let's do this. Hello, friends. In this episode, I'm going to introduce you to my new friend, Megan Dirks. And listen, I just want to say that we cover an enormous range of topics in a very short time in this interview. But as I think back about the interview, because there's no way for you to know this, but that's the process flow. I do the interview and then I pop back in and I record this intro once I know what we talk about. There are a million other things that we could have talked about in this episode. So Megan shares with us two big changes in her life. One is around video gaming and the other is around body size. But as we were chatting, I also learned that she's a nomadic pet sitter. This is a thing. And I didn't take the interview there, but I totally could have because I have a million questions about that. I mean, that's like a really fun thing. Anyway, if you're ready, let's do it. Megan Dirks, welcome to Imperfect Adulting.
Thank you so much for having me today, Amy. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, yay. All right. So are you ready for a fun chat?
I'm very ready for a fun chat this week.
That's very good. Okay, so I begin almost every interview by asking people what part of the world they call home. So what part of the world do you call home these days?
Even though I'm not currently there, Nova Scotia on the east coast of Canada is my home.
Oh, wow. So it looks like, so I can see you. If people who are listening to the audio will not do this, but it looks like it's dark where you are. Is it dark where you are?
It is. It's evening here for me. Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's bright and sunny where I am. So there's a difference. We have totally different environments at the moment. Okay. So I'd love to talk to people about the choices and the changes that we make as adults and how that changes the paths of our lives. You gave me four sort of bits of information in
Okay.
the intake form for this interview. So I'm going to unpack each of those. The first is that you describe your current lifestyle as deeply rewarding. And I think that's amazing. And I just want to jump into the deep end of the interview and sort of set the stage and ask you to describe a little bit about what life is like for you these days that you describe as deeply rewarding.
Yeah. So I think early on, just in a nutshell, life was very scarcity driven. And I was scrambling, doing a lot of things that I always felt just for survival. And now I'm scrambling and doing a lot of things, but I love what they all are.
Okay. All
So
right.
that's been the biggest difference. By day, I'm a brand coach. So I'm a board certified coach. I have been for over 5 years now. Love it. And combine that with the love of branding and marketing for my main practice. So love that work and showing up for that. On top of that, my partner and I are full-time traveling pet sitters. So that's kind of what we moonlight as, but it's given us so much freedom to bounce around all over the globe and take in areas we never would have thought to visit and get to cuddle cute things along the way. So, yeah.
So I don't think I knew that about you before we started this conversation, the nomadic pet sitter, but you're not the only nomadic pet sitter that I know. I know another
Ooh.
person who also does that. And I'm not exactly sure how this gig really comes together and works where you could travel the world and take care of other people's pets, but I'm fascinated by it and I love that you shared it. Okay. So you touched on this a teeny tiny bit, but now that you set up what a deeply rewarding life looks like for you today, we're going to rewind the clock, go back in time, and begin to talk about how you got to where you are. So another tidbit you gave me is that you describe yourself as a video game addicted teen. And so I have a few questions about this. The first is I kind of want to know how old you are. I know that that's a question that gets people, some people don't love, but I'm curious about what the games were that you were playing, which is sort of an age related thing. So
Sure. Yeah. And full transparency, I'm in my early to mid 30s right now. So I'm 32, about to turn 33. And when I was going through the height of my video game addiction, it was during my teenage years. I was around 14, and my main game of choice was World of Warcraft,
okay, all right. So
which
yes,
is still
so
running.
So in World of Warcraft is which is WO they use the letters, right? WOW, that's like the
Yeah, wow.
shorthand. Wow. And that's multiplayer, like you're playing against people in other places. Okay. All right, yes. So
Yeah. And
anyway,
also working together with people too.
working together. So it's because there is a difference, right? There is a difference when we talk about games. Like, so I'm older than you are. The games that came out when I was growing up, they were, like Pac-Man and
Yeah.
Donkey Kong, and it did not have it was completely different, completely different. So okay, so now do you remember how and when you realized or decided that your behavior and the patterns that you were going through with the video games was not what you wanted to do anymore, or was that your decision, or did somebody else interject for you?
No, that was ultimately my decision. Nobody was really able to pull me out of that hole but me, even
Okay.
then. So, for me, it just there was always an awareness of this is really safe, this is really comfortable, really great escapism. I had a stronger social circle online in the game than I did in real life.
Yep.
Um, I had more aligned friends. I had more supportive friends. You name it. It was just everything was better there. So why would I want to spend more time working on my life?
Yeah. No.
But obviously, at some point, I was hitting kind of critical foundation forming years for life where it's like, okay, nothing's happening for career, nothing's happening for finance. Health is not getting better. It wasn't great going into it. It didn't necessarily get worse. It was just flat.
Okay.
So at some point, I have enough self awareness to go, like, these aren't great directions and something has to shake up, sadly.
No, well, I mean, I think that, there's always a choice to not change, right? Like that is a decision. And so I think you get props from me, for seeing it and being aware of it and leaning into it. And that the interactive and the community aspects of the modern games is something that's totally different from like the 1990s when we were playing games. And the other thing is that they sort of go on forever, like so the early rounds of video games, it was, they kind of ended until, it's like you could tap out. You could like, it's like
Yeah.
that, I'm all the way at the top, and go from there. And so it was different. It definitely was. And I think that what's interesting about what you said with the video games, and you set it up as a problem, is like in so many ways, post 2020 is the reality for a lot of people. Like, I think a lot of people have very strong online, Zoom based,
Yeah.
virtual communities and connections with people. In many cases, much stronger than they have on the street where they live, or if they moved during, like all of those things. I think that the world is an interesting place. All right, so you touched on this a teeny tiny bit, and maybe you already answered it actually, but were there other ripple effects of the gaming and spending all the time gaming that was causing tension, conflict, and struggles in your life? So you mentioned that it was time for you to make career moves and start making money. In what ways was it showing up in other places in your life?
Yeah. Well, at the time, there was, not the strongest income growing up. So not necessarily complete poverty level, but an expectation that I'd be able to contribute.
Okay.
So to be able to get by and be comfortable and also have a little above and beyond to put away for ideally my own college or whatever my next move was going to be. So there had to be space for that to start happening at some point. And that was definitely a ripple effect in that area. Family relationships obviously had a little tension. I was very reclusive. I wasn't feeling incredibly supported on a lot of fronts by friends and family. So I didn't want to associate with them around holidays or a barbecue or you name it. No, I wanted to stay at my desk and talk just like this to friends that were far more invested in being supportive and loving. So that
Yeah.
was those ripple effects were definitely there socially on the real life side as well.
So yeah, and you touched on something that you said it very eloquently and very calmly, but we make decisions for a reason. And so it's a very common thing that the adults in a life, now we use the word screen time, right? But
Mm.
they want kids to come off the screens. And if you talk to the kids about it, they really enjoy being on the screens. And one of the things that I think is important for everybody involved to realize is like, you know, you mentioned you're like, I didn't have the most supportive relationships outside of that virtual world. And so that's an important part of the dynamic. It's like it was giving you something that was nice for you. And so that was a big change you made. Okay. The next thing that you shared with me was that at some point in this process, because you touched on health, but at some point in this process, you went through a pretty massive physical body transformation.
Yeah.
Right? So you lost
So
120 pounds.
yeah.
That's amazing.
Um, Thank you. I also had gained those 120 pounds
That is
throughout
how
my
that
teen
works.
years too. Yeah. So, and I think a lot of people would immediately associate that with the gaming, like I'm being fat, lazy, not working out, all of the negative things. And in reality, it was really frustrating to me because I was barely eating. I was going to the gym daily, 2 hours a day. And I was very young to be doing this as well. It was not a healthy routine, but I was desperate because my body was out of control. And I didn't find out until years later that I had an underlying hormonal condition that triggered all of that behind the scenes. So
Wow.
all my efforts were in vain. Everybody thought I was lazy and horrible and just, gamer kind of stereotype. And it was getting more and more out of control. But thankfully, so I didn't think I was crazy in the end, I found the right doctors and practitioners to correctly diagnose me years later.
Okay, so because I was going to ask, I was going to say, what, because there are, okay, so note about me, because you and I have never met before today. Like, I am one of those people who does not actually works really hard. I live in a utopia where all body sizes are welcome and
Yeah.
honored, and totally work really hard to not make assumptions like, hey, if this person has a larger size than me, that means that they are sitting on their cushion drinking soda. So that's me as a person. But yeah, so there are a million ways to change the size of your body. Like different things work for different people. And you highlighted that you discovered that you had a hormonal condition, which is not unusual. A lot of people struggle with this. Even today, where everybody and their brother is taking the massively successful weight loss drugs, still a reality, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if that was before or after you were able to do this. The question is like, this was an intentional thing you were working on it. This was something you wished to change on your own. You made that decision.
Yeah, it was getting to a very unhealthy place where it was turning into eating disorders out of desperation and just trying to do all the right things and they just weren't working. So, okay, let's keep digging
Keep
and try
digging.
this.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And so you were identifying it as an unhappy. What were some of the thoughts that you were experiencing? It sounds like you were young when you were going through this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'd say I started having symptoms of what is polycystic ovarian syndrome for
Yeah.
me that were starting to appear when I was like 12.
Okay.
So, as we go through the rest of my teens and into my early 20s, a time where, a lot of my friends were starting to date and maybe have sex and all of these things that I was feeling less and less comfortable with because my body weight was going up and up and up and up regardless. So I got more and more insecure, less and less confident. And again, the dissociation into the video games for sure.
So yeah, because then you could be off screen. You could pick up an avatar, sure. I mean, that's a tough time for anybody to deal with changing bodies. Like, it's a
Yeah.
very, very tough thing. So, but you had more complications. Do you remember any of the like thoughts about you were dissociating or pulling back? Do you remember any of the thoughts that were bouncing around in your head at that time about your size that were like sort of driving the intense amount of work to try and make a change?
Yeah, I mean, especially as a really young girl at the time, there's the thoughts of like, why would I even bother dating at all? Nobody will love me. I don't love me. I'm disgusted by me. I have zero control over this, and that's even more infuriating. So, a lot of those intrusive thoughts were things I was able to shut off when I gave myself the distraction of gaming as well. And as you say, a lot of the friendships there, we didn't have video calls, it was just audio. So I was much more comfortable knowing that people were friends with me for authentic, genuine reasons. And there
Yeah.
wasn't a shallow, superficial layer there at all. So, yeah.
I think you just very, very brilliantly illustrated the sort of circle of situations. So the gaming, which is something that you look to stop, was actually a very helpful coping mechanism in a lot of ways. It served a purpose. It served a purpose in
Yeah.
creating a safe space and doing all those things. So you do not have to share this if you don't want to, but there are a zillion tools and methods that people use to change their body mass. And I do not want to, you do not have to go there, but do you want to share what methods you use? I don't know if you got the diagnosis of PCOS before or after you were able to reduce, but like if you want to share how you did that, you can.
Sure. And just for clarity's sake, too, kind of timeline wise. So I struggled with that stuff all the way through to early to mid 20s.
Oh, some
And
people struggle through it all the way. I know people who don't get the diagnosis until they're trying to build a family.
yeah,
Like, yeah, so
exactly.
decades, yeah.
So
Yeah.
some people have spotty or irregular periods. I just flat out had none. Right? So 4 years. So beyond that, though, and the family planning issues that come with that, yeah, it wasn't until I think I was 24 or 25 where we were like, we knew we had PCOS for a while, but now we actually have a plan of attack because there had been probably 4 or 5 years I was just guinea pigged on and off of various drugs and told to lose weight,
Yeah.
which is very counterproductive to the whole point of I'm gaining weight because of this condition as well. So, um, yeah, we had gone through some of the basics, metformin off and on, used for diabetics a lot of the time, and insulin resistance, and just birth control that'll regulate it.
That's
Spoilers, it didn't. Um, so yeah, after a lot of that and after a lot of frankly wasting time when things were still escalating for me, it got to the point that I had practitioners just recommending, even though I was very young for this, recommended bariatric surgery for me
yeah.
to kind of kickstart it, get my body back under control, give me a toolkit that I could control. And that's what happened in 2016. I went for
Yeah.
a vertical sleeve gastrectomy and reduced the size of my stomach. And then, thankfully, when I went back home, I resumed eating clean and resumed working out. And except this time, it actually mattered. And I was getting positive feedback from my body. And that's where the 120-pound weight loss came in.
So that okay, so that's good. That's very good. And like I said, there's a zillion tools, and I'm a person who does not actually have an opinion on on the tools that people use. Whether I just
Yeah.
don't. I like they all work. There's a place, and I just don't think that there's any point in shaming or judging or putting a value judgment in how we do these things.
Mm.
I'm known, so I'm glad that it worked for you. I'm glad that you began to feel better and do those things. So that's very, very good. All right. So now let's sort of draw these kind of try and bring these things kind of together because I'm wondering if you see a pattern in the changes that you made with the gaming and the weight loss and all of the things and building the life that you like. If you see a pattern of things that you sort of have decided over and over again, like if it's like sort of the same sequence of self-discovery or totally different.
Yeah, I'd say for all of those for me, I have noticed some themes over the years and how I operate and how I guess, problem solve long term. And whether it was popping out of gaming or jobs that didn't serve me at the time or health issues, there's always been a theme of I'm a very relentless person. And I'm very stubborn in what I would like to think is the best way possible. So if I get really frustrated by something, it turns into a puzzle for me, and I will research it and try to figure it out until I figure it out. And that takes a lot of creative, out of the box solutions sometimes that I feel other people may give up on sooner. Like you go to the doctor, they tell you something, you try it, it doesn't work. Okay, I guess this is like this forever. That's not me.
Yeah.
We try something. If it's not working, I am very comfortable self-advocating for myself. And I realize that is pretty much essential because not every authority figure, whether it's business or health and wellness, anything, knows everything. And there are very often times that you can push for a different solution or push to be heard a little more or be that person for yourself, really, because sometimes it is just you that has your best interests.
Right. And only you, I think that's, I mean, that's 100%. Like only you know your experience. And it's more something that people are talking about now, like how in a short meeting with a doctor, it's very hard to communicate like what's going on and people get talked over and all of those things. And, it's a whole thing. But learning to self-advocate, you're the only one who can feel what's happening in your own body. You're the only one that can
Mm-hmm.
have that experience. And so like learning how to communicate that to somebody else is like a powerful, powerful tool.
Yeah.
All right, so now those are the things that we've got. Like, so you've made some pretty big changes. You went from being a gamer to not being a gamer. You went through a personal transformation that was very, 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 very detailed and comprehensive that involved a medical element and a personal element. You've got some career stuff. Like, so you are a brand consultant, but you also do a bunch of, and you are a pet sitter. And
Yes.
are you other like, and are there other things that you are as well?
At the moment, I am making a book
You're making a book.
with
All right.
21 other women. So that is kind of a side thing that's happening as a passion project I took off the back burner. Aside from that, just for sake of story as well, my brand coaching wasn't always my primary practice. My first practice was actually helping other youth with video game addiction.
Youth with
So
video game addiction. Okay. All right. So
yeah,
there we go. Like, so you first went to that. So, and that there's a thing within people who are helping other people, which is that like everybody is their own first client. Like, so like they would
hmm
begin with the experience. So you helped youth with video game addiction. And now you are working on a collaborative book, we call it, right?
yeah,
All
an
right.
anthology.
An anthology. All right, very, very nice. Okay, so in a minute, we'll do final questions. But I want to give you a chance to tell people what you do and how you can find them and tell them about the anthology.
Yeah, so through my own journey, I realized that there's so many stories of women that we've all gone through these different things, and very rarely do we actually take a platform and just run with it and share. And at the time that I started this project, I was just feeling very negative and I just wanted to create something in the world that was good, that was
Yeah.
nice, that was uplifting, that was hopefully motivating. The concept came from, if you remember, like old Chicken Soup for the Soul books as a
Yeah.
series, paired with kind of the more modern before and after posts we see on social media all the time. So yeah, I dug around and found 20 plus amazing women with various challenges in life, from health to financial ruin to homelessness and sobriety. And I gave us all a chapter and we're throwing it into a book. And we have a companion podcast as well. And it's been a really, really fun ride so far. And again, very busy, but very rewarding at the same time.
Very nice. I love that. That has a lot of similarity to the stories I'm looking to tell. And you're doing transformations, and I'm doing the choices that
Yeah.
drive the change. And one of the things that, one of the like sort of little isms that I have is that I say, everybody's got a story. The fact that you don't know somebody's story doesn't mean that it's not there. Like everybody's got a story. And because like otherwise we walk through life like just, ignoring that and proceeding and treating people like they don't have a story or, whatever it might be. So, all right. So the name of the book is The Girl on the Left.
Yes, I probably should
Yes.
have said
The girl on
that.
the left. I have it in front of me, so I'm happy to, this is the reason I do it instead of asking people to do it from memory because it's hard. All right. So, and you have very generously made an offer to the people who are listening, if the, for pre-order of the book. And if you listen to this, in the future, and the book is already out, then the pre-order is over. Just buy the book. But you can go to thegirlontheleft.com/pre-order, and we have a code of imperfect25 that will get you a discount. That's a really, really wonderful offer and very generous. I want to say thank you to that. That will be in the show notes for people who are listening, but it's also in the email that I send out, which is the easiest way to collect the special offers. So make sure you're on the email list. And now I am going to ask you, we're going to close this out with 3 random questions. Rapid fire, you can try and answer them in a couple words just for fun, not based on anything. Ready?
Very ready.
Okay. She's got her gamer face on. She's like, I'm
Yeah,
ready.
let's go.
Okay. If money and time were no object, what is your dream vacation destination?
Ooh, South African safari. Again, huge animal
Ooh,
lovers with the nomadic pet sitting. So give me travel and animals, and we are very good.
that is a dream vacation. Have you seen what is it? The giraffe hotel, the giraffe bed
The
and
Giraffe
breakfast?
Manor.
Giraffe Manor.
Yes.
That's it.
Uh-huh.
That's on my dream list. I just think that looks amazing.
Agreed. And giraffes are one of my favorite animals, just on bare bones. People know that about me. So, yeah, it would be a lovely detour to be able to work that in for sure.
Yeah, and anybody who has not Googled Giraffe Manor definitely should.
Yes.
It's they you can eat a breakfast or lunch or you can eat a meal and the giraffes reach in and steal your coffee,
Yeah, through the
which
windows.
just through the windows. I can't it looks amazing. Okay, so next question: on a rainy day with no work, no chores, nothing expected of you, even in your pet sitting, there's no pets. There's nothing
Ooh,
to be done, right? How do you fill your day these days? I'm going to give you some multiple choice, but you can select outside if it doesn't work. Reading
okay.
books, watching TVs or movies, listening to music, playing games or doing puzzles, crafty stuff. What's your passion there?
Yeah, probably still playing games, honestly. I've looped back to that in a very healthy way. I still play with friends that I met in 2008. So that is still definitely the medium of choice versus TV. I just can't as much. There's no interactivity.
There you
So
go.
for me, that's still my go-to with a cozy tea and a blanket and maybe a nice bath after, and we're having a great day.
No, that's good. Games can get a bad rap. Like, so definitely, like, people can overdo it and stuff like that. But I have somebody in my family who was an avid gamer that then became a software engineer. And so, like, the gaming was sort of like the pre-setup. So, and probably everybody would have been happy with to drop the years of fighting about, or were you gaming too much? But I mean, there's just not to say that you can't have a problem, just like to show that, like,
No,
it can go the
absolutely.
other way. It can go
In
the
my
other way.
original practice for that, a lot of my work was with parents and reminding them that a lot of very lucrative, very valid career paths usually develop from gaming as an interest. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
So that,
programming,
yeah.
art. Yeah.
Are there and the games are so different. So when my stepkids and kids were little, Minecraft was first out, and there was a whole
Mhm.
community of like, don't let your kids spend too much time. And then the person in my family who's a programmer was like, actually, here are the skills that you develop in Minecraft. And I was like, okay, like there's two
Yeah,
sides to this coin.
for
And
sure.
I, right, two sides to this coin. Also, I just for everybody who's listening, I eventually lost the battle in my house over screen time, unequivocally lost when the Apple Watch came out. I completely lost. There was no way to stop my children. They win the battle. It's I moved on. Okay, so what is the most recent thing that you purchased for yourself because you wanted it, like just for pleasure? So you can't count like a toothbrush or floss or something.
Ooh. Um, Honestly, what comes to mind is the sweater I'm wearing.
Oh, very nice.
People may or may not be able to see, but this was my Black Friday winter hoodie sale that I scored. And as you travel nomadically with pets, many of your clothes do get destroyed.
Oh,
So
interesting.
sometimes your favorite clothes get destroyed or just worn down or a little ripped up or eaten sometimes. So we do notice we go through more clothes in this side hustle of ours.
So that's an unexpected challenge of being a nomadic pet sitter. I would not have
Yes.
said, I would not have guessed that. I don't know what I would have guessed the side effects were. I think I would have guessed that the challenges were like finding new clients and figuring out where you're going to go and in between and stuff like that. But the clothing aspect, I don't know that I would have picked that. But I also have to admit that I have not put a whole lot of thought about this until this one moment right here.
Fair.
There we
No,
go.
honestly, we are typically booked 6 to 8 months out in advance. We don't take anything less than a month. And otherwise, it can feel a little chaotic when you're still holding down your businesses and stuff too, and having a
No, I
little too
can't
much
even
travel in
imagine.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
time
can't
zone
imagine.
differences, you name it.
I cannot imagine just trying to like trying to travel and have like a stable signal for like a meeting wherever you end up is
Mhm.
so stressful. And so to do that when you were changing locations for a month, I can imagine would be, I would imagine it would take a learning curve to get good at it, to be able to balance it for sure. All right. Well, that's it, Megan. I want to thank you very much for being a wonderful guest on the Imperfect Adulting Show.
Thank you so much for having me today. It was genuinely a really fun chat.
Thank you for listening today. I hope that you enjoy the show. And before I go, I want to encourage you to become a bigger part of the conversation. Obviously, subscribe wherever you're listening to the show. Listen to more episodes. That'd be great. Obvi again, please write a review and tell your friends about the show. That truly is a great help for getting the show in front of new people. Okay, but more fun for you yourself, head over to imperfectadulting.com and join the email community. You'll get some free stuff right away, and that way you'll begin to get the emails about the podcast. This includes the links for the special offers from the guests, and it's the only way to get that. Also, if you aren't in the mood to listen, I actually include an article directly in those emails. Whee! Now, if you love this and you crave more time with me, Amy, as a coach, a mentor, or just adultier adult, numero uno, check out The Village. If you have a story you want to share with the listeners, I'd love to hear from you. I have an open application. Just let me know you want it. And that's a wrap for today. Until next time, remember, the journey is the destination. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that, not me. Well, until just now, I did just say it. But what I want you to hear today is that if your adulting journey isn't going the way you expected, that may not mean that you're lost. It may just mean that you're on your way. This is Amy Stone, signing off. The Imperfect Adulting Podcast is created and produced by Amy Stone and Amy Says So. Anything expressed on this show is offered as entertainment, and the views of the guests may not always represent the ideas and viewpoints of the host. That's me. Amy does not intend or hold herself out to provide professional advice or recommendations of any kind. In the end, you and you alone need to make those kinds of decisions based on your personal and individual situation, needs, circumstances, and comfort level.